attorney from Clare, Harrison, Harvey, and Brandsburg. I represent the property owners and project leads and developers, Taib Smith and Guy Loren, who are both here and will be speaking this evening to you guys. First, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to meet with us. I see it looks like it's 48 participants. And so thus far, that's the highest number of participants I've had for a virtual RCO meeting. So kudos to you guys in terms of the level of engagement in this community. So I appreciate the time. I know it's around dinner time, so we'll try not to go too long. As I said, I'm here representing Taib Smith and Guy Loren. They're here. We're here to present on 53 to 59 North 52nd Street. I'm going to share my screen here. If that's okay, Tempest, if I can start.
Yes, you can share the screen. You're still a co-host, right?
I think I am because the polls are popping up. So.
Also, when you are finished, can you put a link for the building plan and proposal into the chat when you get a chance?
Yes, I'll do that before we sign off.
Thank you.
You guys can let me know. Are you guys seeing the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
You can share it.
I'm already sharing. Do you not see it?
No, we see it.
Oh, okay. All right. So as I said, we're here to present our project on 53 to 59 North 52nd Street, which from this cover page, as you can see, excuse me, I'm coming down with something here. But as you can see from this aerial shot, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's basically the green space with the two trees right off the corner here in the aerial shot. So before we get into the specific details of the project, I'm sure many of you on the call may already know our project lead and developing lead, Taib Smith, but I wanted to give him an opportunity just to introduce himself and his background, because going forward for this project, he's going to be the sort of point of contact and spearheading all the community initiatives that are tied to this project and the actual development of it. So I'm gonna just give him a few minutes to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about his background and his vision for this project. I guess, can you unmute him? Or?
Yes, I'll unmute him now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Taib. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tempest, for hosting this and particularly for setting the table in the conversation with so much clarity. Also, Erica, thank you for raising the points about equity and community. So a little bit about me. I'm a third-generation Philadelphian. I lived in North Philadelphia as a small child, but I lived in West Philadelphia in my adolescence, 5200 block of Chancellor Street to be exact. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm partners in a company called Little Giant Creative. We've been around for 15 years, specializes in cultural competency. So my clients range from Heineken USA to Temple University, Drexel University, Knight Foundation. The list is varied, but I'm also a founder and partner in Smith & Roller. So I've had a very diverse and untraditional trajectory as an entrepreneur. I got my GED when I was in the Navy. After that, I was in the restaurant business for like 5 years, and then I spent about 10 years in the music business before starting my marketing company. And to be frank, most of the programs that would have given me workforce development opportunities were remedial services and could not speak to things that would have pulled me into the 21st century economy. And I feel a great debt, not just to my community, but to my family and to the history of Black entrepreneurship, which has traditionally been the one thing that protects us or gives us agency and fiscal destiny, frankly, in a white supremacist structural economy. And in the contemporary economy, there's a lot of talk about startups and there's a lot of talk about investment. But, you know, West Philadelphia is bordered by institutional wealth that comes from academia, it comes from healthcare, but we don't have pipelines and we don't have opportunities to develop an ecosystem of supporting Black businesses. So in addition to the two companies that I described, my first real estate deal was a project called Pipeline Philly, which is a co-working space at 30 South 15th Street in Center City that overlooks City Hall. That was a sweat equity deal for a $2 million project that, you know, to be frank, I was not capitalized to do. I was able to create partnerships that helped me build that business. And since then, I've been doing other things like that. So to the left there is J Central. That's an apartment building with 116 apartments and 30,000 square feet of commercial space at 3400 J Street in Kensington, which is a neighborhood that has 51% unemployment. And that is coming online and will start leasing in October. So most of my projects are along the L because I don't drive and I believe in mass transit. So these apartments are priced for working people, for students, and for people who live in the neighborhood. There are a lot of ways that you can do development, but there are not that many ways that people are thinking equitably about how to be inclusive and how to create products and services that can develop communities to our benefit, to be frank. Guy, Lauren, and I have been talking for probably 3 years about different opportunities. And for 2 years, I've been looking at deals on 52nd Street. I had another deal that Tempest knows about when she was at TEC that broke my heart that I wasn't able to bring to fruition. And during that time, Guy and I reconnected and we started talking about 53 North 52nd Street. So what I want to do there is take what I've learned from entrepreneurship, from creating co-working spaces, and create a 21st century office space that services not just 52nd Street, but services the Black community writ large, Philadelphia. So there are a lot of services that, to be frank, we go to Center City for, or we go to 40th Street for, but there are people who live in 46th Street to 60th Street who should be bringing their dollars, their income, and their eyeballs to 52nd Street. And that's one of the visions that I'm bringing to this partnership with Guy. I have a lot more work that I could talk about, but I would rather save time for questions. I know there are always concerns when there's change coming to a neighborhood or a community that has been historically divested or not seen in development. As somebody who's, to be frank, I grew up in poverty and I dealt with housing instability probably until my late 20s. So I am the Black community through and through. And my father lives in Cobbs Creek. And I won't give you his address, but if I showed you a picture of him, most of you probably have seen him at something community involved. So I'll leave it there. If you have any additional questions, my email is just taib@littlegiantcreative.com. You can find me on any social media. I'm accessible and I'm here to answer questions and concerns.
Thank you so much, Taib. Guy, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Guy Laren. I've been in the West Philly and Philadelphia area for about 37 years. I just recently started getting excited about the 52nd Street corridor, so I've been involved there with a few projects over the last few years. I'm going to let Luke from my office talk about the specific project, but I will be the landlord and partner with Taib. So he can give you more about the content. But with regard to the building, we have the right to build a 4-story building approximately this size, the size that we're asking for. We're asking for 2 things from the community. The first is that we want to reconfigure the back of the building so that it has sort of a garden area in the middle. And that means we don't have the correct setbacks. So one of our variances we're asking for is a setback variance, but it doesn't really change the cubic footage of the building. The second thing we're asking for is we're asking for a 5th story. We're allowed to have 4 by right. We're asking for a 5th story, just so that we can make sure that the cost to build this exciting and hopefully beneficial building works. It's the first time this is being done in that 52nd Street corridor, so we're taking a little bit of a risk, and the financing and all will be a little bit more difficult to provide in this project. So we're asking for permission to put a fifth story. As of now, the general idea is we have a nonprofit that does micro lending in Center City that finds that a lot of their clients are in the West Philly area, and they're going to take some of the first floor space. So we'll have a micro lender. We hope to have some sort of coffee shop or convening area on the first floor. And then upstairs will be this hub where Taib will hopefully bring stakeholders from the neighborhood and allow individuals to all meet together and create a synergy that allows startups and businesses to flourish. And I'll leave you with Luke from my office, who can tell you more about the specific building. I'm available for any other questions.
Thank you, Guy. Luke.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Luke Kovac. I'm a project manager at Constellar Corporation. So a little bit about the project. It's 53-59 North 52nd Street. The current zoning is CMX2. There are 2 refusals on our zoning application, one being for the total height of the proposed project. CMX2 allows for a 38-foot high building by right, and we are asking for a total height of 51 feet to allow for that 5th story. The second item is going to be lot coverage. CMX2 would require a rear yard requirement. However, the way we've configured our building, the total building will cover 73% of the total lot area. So we are meeting the 25% open area requirement. We're actually, I guess, 2% over the open area requirement. So we are well within those guidelines. However, rather than having a backyard, we're asking that we put our open area as a courtyard within the building space.
Okay, so Guy and Luke touched on this a little bit regarding what we're looking to do within the building, but just to give the community a sense of the design, well, this is the current exterior, this is the current lot that we're referring to, and this is the design of the exterior of the building. As you can see, it's the commercial space on the first floor, and then the communal entrepreneurship hubs on the floors above that. Just to give you a sense what this would look like within the context of the street, here are 2 photos. The one on the left is looking from the corner of 52nd Arch, looking down towards Market, and the one on the right is looking from Market down towards 52nd and Arch. And to give you an idea of the interior and then the distinction with the courtyard versus backyard that both Luke and Guy were referring to, there's a floor plan that shows how the court, where the green space would be in relation to the building. As you can see, it's the conference rooms, there's offices and things of that nature, and then there's commercial on the first floor. As they said, as was mentioned, the variances that are being requested from the ZBA are the maximum height and the rear yard. Because we have when it comes to the rear yard, as was mentioned, we have the required open space requirement. It's really about the placement. And design decided to do a courtyard sort of design, and therefore we need a variance from the rear yard because we designed it in that fashion. And then, of course, the maximum height. So in terms of the neighborhood context, it's our position that the commercial floor on the first floor, obviously this is a commercial corridor, so that's something that we wanted to keep within the existing character of the neighborhood or the street. To maintain commercial space on the first level as it is up and down the entire block and further up on 52nd Street when you cross over Market. And then we believe that the character of the neighborhood in terms of developing the commercial corridor is in line with the vision that's been set by some of the neighborhood organizations such as the Enterprise Center and ACHIEVEability, and et cetera, in terms of developing a substantial commercial corridor. So we believe that there are benefits to having an entrepreneurship hub that benefits the businesses that are existing, but also businesses that aren't existing yet that may be there in the future, whether it's with further development or further influx of business or capital, but also with the businesses that are developed within the entrepreneurship hub, as is the design of these hubs, is to be able to hopefully generate substantial and long-lasting businesses that may get its birth at the entrepreneurship hub, but can become a larger and staying community staple. We believe that, obviously, this entrepreneurship hub like this will provide opportunities for young professionals who live in West Philadelphia, who sometimes commute into Center City for opportunities like this, to be able to stay in West Philadelphia, to be able to foster whatever they're working on or whatever projects they're involved in. So keep that brief. So at this time, we wanted to keep as much time for questions as possible. So we'll end there, and we'll take any questions that people may have. Tempest, I don't know how you want to.
Yeah, I like to just have some ground rules before we go into question and answer period. Yes. So as we move into the question and answer period, there are a few ways in which we can ask questions. I know that you want to ask a question if you raise your hand. You can raise your hand by going into the participants section right down at the bottom of your screen, and going by your name and saying raise hand. Or you can put in the comment section that you have a question. You may also write out your question in the chat section if you don't want to speak it. However, we will give people an opportunity to ask questions verbally if they so choose. We are asking for questions. It is very important that this time is used to illuminate people to this project. This is not a time for speeches. This is not a time for monologues. We do care about how you feel. We need this time to showcase questions that will illuminate people to this project, to any questions, concerns, issues you may have. I already see 2 participants raising their hands. Thank you so much. I will then go. I will go towards the people who have raised their hands. Also, for the developers, we ask that if someone asks you a particular question, that you answer it. So, for instance, if someone says, "Taib, answer this question, please," I would appreciate it if you answer it. Same for Guy. Please answer all questions that are proposed, that are geared towards you. So I'm going to go into the participants, And
Tempest, could I just,
yes,
real quick, I just wanted to mention, if anyone wants me to flip to a certain slide, just let me know, and I'll flip to the slide that there are questions in reference to if needed.
okay, that's perfect. After question and answer period is over, I will then put forth another poll question, and that'll be the final vote on whether you approve of this project or whether you don't. Okay, the first person that I will ask is Charlie, who has his hand raised, followed by Willie Jordan. So you can lower your hand and you can unmute yourself, Willie. Charles.
Hi, thank you so much for holding this. First of all, I'm not often able to get out to things because I'm disabled, and I really appreciate the online option here. So thank you so much.
We're so happy that you came. Thank you.
So my questions are toward Guy Laren and Constellar Corp around what they can do for y'all to ensure that the conditions of their buildings and the way their tenants are being treated are different than the way myself and the other striking tenants have been treated by Guy Laren and by Constellar Corp. And I won't take up too much time, but I hope you might have the patience to hear maybe like 1 minute of my experience as a tenant and our neighborhood's experience with this corporation.
We can give you 30 seconds, but yes.
Thank you. Starting from the most present, they are threatening to sue a lot of tenants who have been unable to pay. They have not offered any rent relief. Going back from that before COVID, just many houses on our street having sewage leaking in to the basements and out the backyards. We had to build with pallets and tarps a way to contain the feces in our backyard, and it was because the plumbing wasn't right. And you know, these people are connected and have been doing this. When I moved in years ago to the neighborhood, the tenants moving out apologized to me for my misfortune for like ending up with this landlord. And ever since then, I've just heard more of the same. There's more to be said, but I don't want to take too much time.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Charlie. Guy, how can you ensure that the quality and caretaking of this building will be different from any other buildings that you currently maintain, and how do you address what was said?
Yeah, I'd like to deal with her as we would with any tenant. We have a process to call for repairs, and I think we're pretty good about helping any tenant that has any problem. With regard to tenants who aren't paying rent, we've worked with every tenant who's called. We haven't evicted anybody, but if they don't pay, we will work out a deal with anybody who has a reasonable proposal. I'm not sure who she is. I'm not sure what her specifics are, but I can just tell you we have very many happy tenants. I'm not sure I heard, but were you saying we weren't renewing your lease, young lady?
No, she said that there was no help for rental assistance, and that there were issues with plumbing from your.
I got that part.
Okay.
I just thought she was asking to renew. So
no, she didn't go into specifics there, and
okay.
we would ask for that to
We
happen.
have a very reasonable product. I think we have a very good support staff, and I think we've done a good job with everyone. The virus has taken us all by surprise, and we can't let everyone just live for free, but we've been very reasonable with everyone we've dealt with. And I hope this brand new building won't have any of those issues. But if there's a pandemic, I can't tell you what we're all going to be facing together.
Thank you, Guy. Willie, you're next, then Bernardina. remember, you can ask a question both in the chat box if you would like, or you can go in participants or by your name and raise your hand. Willie, you can speak now. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you. I have some concerns. You guys seem to be pretty knowledgeable of West Philadelphia, but what impact with there are like 3 already existing small businesses and minority business programs in that West Philadelphia area. Why do you see a need to put that type of service there? One is the West Philadelphia Financial Services. The other one is the West Philadelphia Enterprise, and also the other one at 52nd and Parkside. There are 3 entities that deal with small businesses. And how do you feel you'd be competitive being right there in that area? Also, who is doing the building of this property? And how did you come up with that design to kind of like take away what the existing structures are?
Okay, so that's 3 questions.
I try to get them all in.
So,
we'll do that, but
I'll try to
make sure that everybody, 1 question, 1 vote, 1 person usually. Okay, but we'll allow it this time. Thank you so much, Mr. Willie. And please, Taib and the rest of the team, the questions were with other CDC and business development firms in the West Philly area. What is your differential? What makes you different? What makes you competitive? Why did you choose that particular design? And if
Tempest, that was a lot, so I'll just deal with what I can. So, Mr. Jordan, as I explained, as an entrepreneur, I am very familiar with West Philly Financial and TEC. But for the entrepreneurs that, to be frank, I represent, who might work in entertainment, e-commerce, technology, creative design, traditionally the CDFIs and the small business services infrastructure do not service entrepreneurs like myself. So Jim Burnett is a good friend of mine and a longtime colleague, and I've worked with West Philly Financial in workshopping with their students, and I've collaborated with him across a wide range of projects. He's a part of something I've created called The Collective, which represents 10 African-American real estate developers throughout the city. I had attempted to work with TEC when Tempest was there. I've attempted to work with TEC with Jesse. I've recently been in more discussions with Della Clark since this project, but I have contracts with the Commerce Department. I have contracts with the Health Department to mentor and give technical assistance for the entrepreneurs that I'm describing. And to be frank, the infrastructure that exists does not speak to entrepreneurs that come from my ecosystem. So I'm bringing my personal experience back to the community I come from because, I have projects in Philadelphia, I have contracts outside of the city, but the gentlemen that I represent are not represented within the infrastructure of economic products, technical assistance, and so-called workforce development.
Thank you.
And so if I could just piggyback off that, because I think I could address Mr. Jordan's last question. So just to clarify, there's currently, when he had, one of his questions was about the replacing the buildings was there. I just wanted to clarify that they're currently vacant lots. There's no buildings there that would need to be demolished or replaced. The lots are currently vacant. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. I'm going to take a question, 2 questions.
You feel comfortable with those?
Oh, what'd you say? They didn't answer your question.
They didn't answer who's building it. Who's
who's building? Have you guys solidified your builders yet?
My company has built. We do several $1 million a year in construction. and we'll bid it out to various people. We have staff that does construction. We have a bunch of reliable subcontractors, but we will bid it out to get the best prices.
Okay. And
Just
you know,
two other answers for Mr. Jordan. You asked about how we were going to coexist with Enterprise Center. Our micro lender is good friends with Della at the Enterprise Center, and before she agreed to move here, she spoke specifically to Della, and Della said, "You're doing a different level of lending than we are," and so it's like she got Della's blessing before she agreed to move into our space. So those are the kind of things to agreeing to put this together. And I'm not sure, are you asking about the design, which is different than a traditional
Yes,
building?
yes.
So that's what you're asking.
That's what they're asking.
Yeah.
I knew it was a lot.
I understand. Yeah. And we were trying not to just blend in. We were trying to make something.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Can everyone mute themselves? I'll go in and mute everyone if you don't. One second. Okay, is everyone muted? Okay, Guy, you can please unmute yourself and speak about the design. You said you didn't want to.
Am I muted?
You are currently speaking.
Can you hear me, Mr. Jordan?
Everyone can hear you.
Yeah. By the way, you have an excellent reputation in the neighborhood. I've only been there about a year and a half. Your name comes up constantly, and everyone says wonderful things about you. So I appreciate you coming and listening to our pitch. What we're trying to do with this building, if we succeed, will be really transformational for 52nd Street. I mean, Taib's not even telling you all the good thoughts he has for some future plans for trying to get the kids from the neighborhood into really whatever exciting things they can dream of. And we were hoping the building would reflect that. So we weren't trying to match facades. We were trying to do something that somewhat stood out. I hope you like it. The architect is actually on today. So unless you want to call him out, we thought it displayed some sort of distinction and for the kind of work we're hoping to get accomplished in that building.
And if I could just add on to that. So there are a lot more plans in terms of technical assistance services for entrepreneurs. So one of the tenants is a company that I'm partners in called IF Lab, IF standing for Idea Factory. We opened in November in Kensington, and the plan is to occupy about 3,000 square feet in this building. So that's the entity that we manage that has a contract with the Commerce Department to give those services to entrepreneurs now. So we're trying to build an ecosystem of services to put in this building so there's a multiplicity of benefits for the community. And just to add on, there are accountants, there are attorneys, there are all kinds of, let's say, people who need office space who are in other parts of the city who could make a home in this space. We have 27,000 square feet. And to speak to the garden that we're trying to build there and to trying to have transformative design, we want to create a beacon that is actually something that shows that there's a new direction for 52nd Street, and that we're trying to do something, my language, from a Black gaze, and trying to imagine what does a Black-centered space that's built around business development is imagined it.
Thank you so much. Jason M. Coles in the chat asked, can Guy and the team commit to having local minority subcontractors at a percentage of the project for 10 to 15%?
So I haven't talked to Guy about this, but I just want to say something for clarity. One of my businesses has been around for 15 years, and I have just started to apply for some MBE projects. And I really resent MBE because what it does is it puts you in this space where you are never seen and you can't be the prime. So as somebody who's always learning, I would like to imagine even further and get a prime contractor who might be Black owned. But also I like to talk about community benefits agreements, which I'm sure might come up in the language, and I can share everyone a report about community benefits nationally. There are community benefits agreements in the city, like there's one in Mantua, and I don't want to get too into the minutia, but the community benefits agreements for 5 years is equivalent to the salary of some of the people at the anchor institutions around the corner. So what we imagine and what we want to do for the community is beyond, I think, some statistical things that can easily be maneuvered through what they call pass-throughs. So there's a lot of ways that people get minority contracts, and there's just a optical partner in. So I understand what you're saying, but inclusivity and equity, I try to speak in a language of restorative justice, not diversity and inclusion. But to your point, that is something that is important.
Okay, thank you so much. FM, you've been waiting. You can ask a question. And thank you. The next question after that will be from Michael John. And then Banks, then Bernardina. FM? You can unmute yourself. I'll give you 5 seconds before I move on. Okay, next up will be Michael Johns.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I actually have a couple of comments.
Please make them questions if possible, and please limit them to one so that everybody gets a chance to ask a question if possible. You can ask the rest in the chat. Thank you. Your most important one, please. Thanks.
Okay. One, are you opposed to doing a written agreement for the community? And one other just comment about the architecture, the plans don't match the elevation.
Okay, thank you so much. So would you write a community agreement, community benefits agreement in writing? Would you be amenable?
Yeah, I mean, conceptually, we've done them before. Just depends what's in it. We've done community agreements before, and successfully finished the projects and abided by our agreements.
And I would just go back to my earlier comment to the gentleman about if you email me, I can share a study with you about community benefit agreements nationally and how easily they can be manipulated regardless of what's on paper to exploit what the intent is. So there's the spirit of the law and there's the intent of the law. I want to go beyond rhetorical or optical statements. So who would that agreement be with? Would it be with Achievability? Would it be with the councilwoman's office? Would it be, yeah.
I think maybe we should look at a multi-pronged effect where there's a collaboration between the councilperson's office, TC, and some committee folks. We can work that out offline.
Yeah, and I think it's a way to do it so that you address those concerns in terms of the equity part of the equation, so that your agreement is much different than the previous agreements that you stated.
I would love to talk about this with you offline, sir. So Taib at littlegiantcreative.com.
We will allow for Banks.
Can I just ask, Mr. Johns, what was the disconnect between the elevation and the plans?
Your plan shows 2 entrances and 1 large commercial space. Your elevation suggests that there's several commercial spaces on the ground floor.
Oh,
Because there appears to be 4 or 5, about 4 double doors.
yeah. I mean, we typically build in a lot of doors in the event in the future we need to downsize, but the space will be used initially as 2 spaces.
On the commercial floor?
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Next is Banks, Berdina, FM, and then I will go to the chat to get more questions from the chat. Thank you all for your patience, and thank you for the great questions.
All right. Good evenings, everyone. My name is Chris Banks. I run an organization called the Banks Giving Company, and what we do is focus around providing kids with opportunities and based upon financial literacy throughout the city. So one of my questions, as being a father, as well as someone who runs an organization for kids, and even more so, someone who's the owner of 2 West Philadelphia homes. One, I do support the revitalization of 52nd Street, as long as it's moving in a positive and equitable space for Black and brown people as well. But is there anything that we have in place for the kids or for the youth of that area? I know that you briefly mentioned that Brother Tayyib did have something in place, but I'm definitely interested in how we plan on moving the youth of that area in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years, and is there anything economically or fiscally available for them?
Okay, so a lot of people have contacted me since this came out in the press, and I've had 2 calls so far with Yeah Philly. They're an organization that deals with the most impacted by violence, so formerly incarcerated youth, and we're talking to them about actually doing a youth advisory commission for the building, just in terms of like giving us intellectual capital about the corridor, or maybe some things that me as a 49-year-old Black man who talks about his adolescence there can actually have somebody who is an adolescent there today see a vision for some of the things we're doing.
I will also say Philadelphia Student Union, which is down the street, would be a great collaborator in that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Banks, for Mr. Banks, for that. Berdina, please.
Hi, this is Berdina. I do not belong to, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I do not belong to any organization. However, I live close to 52nd Street, and I am a long-time resident of this area, born and raised. So I know the history of 52nd Street, and I know what it was, and I know what it is now. My question, I am in a little confusion about this building. How is this project different from 46th Street Enterprise Center? What are you hoping to gain that is different from 46th Street? I don't understand are there going to be apartments in this building, or is this just strictly office space?
Office space.
And how do you plan on getting the community, especially young people, involved in getting some jobs for them or starting some businesses and so forth and so on for this community? I don't, I'm kind of confused. I'm a little disconnected here.
So, thank you for your question, ma'am. I believe Mr. Jordan asked a very similar question, and I don't know if you were on at that time, but what I explained was, as an entrepreneur who mentors and works with entrepreneurs and has contracts and best practices and success, and working with entrepreneurs, particularly under 40, the ecosystem of services, technical services, workforce development services, do not have products or mentors or an ecosystem that understands the 21st century economy or is presenting curriculum to young people that draws them in. So I'm familiar with the Enterprise Center and I understand the audiences they have traditionally served. I'm attempting to create an environment that sets the seeds to nurture a new generation of entrepreneurs who are in the spaces that I inhibit. And I mentor many entrepreneurs across sector, and I have colleagues across many different sectors. And I can say humbly, and I think even Jesse or some other people from TEC would admit to you, there are certain industries that they're not prepared to service everyone. So for us to have a diverse, truly diverse in terms of sector and socioeconomic entry point, we have to bring a diversity of ideas and energy and a wide range of services into West Philadelphia. And I'm not talking about our project.
Thank you. And I just want to make a clarification note. This is a strictly commercial project. So there are lots of questions around residential rents, rents in other parts of the city. This is not, there is no housing that is a part of this project. Also, I think one thing that's important to note is not only is this a entrepreneurial hub, but one of the major differences between this proposed development and the Enterprise Center or West Philly Financial Services is that there would be spaces leased out to businesses en masse. There's 4 floors of them, of space for businesses to set up shop. Whereas the Enterprise Center has a CDFI, which is a bank. They do programming. They help and make sure that people get certified for MDBA, and a host of other services to wrap around. They have a commercial kitchen. But however, within the building, within the walls, they do not rent and lease space out en masse to businesses. So if a person was an atelier, they wanted to make hats and ties, if they called the Enterprise Center today and said, could I rent a desk for my tie shop? The answer would be no. There is no space at the Enterprise Center. I think that in the conversation of hubs and services, the actual difference is getting lost. This is, for better or worse, a collective working space with programming added in, okay? So that adds a few questions, that combines a few questions from the group chat. This is a strictly commercial project. So one of the questions though were about rent. And you can look at this from a leasing perspective or space per month if there's a membership or anything like that. What is your pricing for commercial businesses? And what would be the hours of operation for rental space? Anyone can take that.
Saeed?
Do you want to have Luke talk about price per square foot? I mean, we haven't built the building as of yet. So and I have to create a business, an operating business to manage the space. So we have a handful of tenants that we're already talking to. And then I have to lease up probably another 24,000 square feet. So it's too soon to start talking about what type of price point I'm going to be able to deliver. But if I were to look at a co-working model, there are people in my co-working space in Center City that would not be able to afford to have an office or a desk that overlooks City Hall if it weren't for a collective cooperative economics model. So that's the type of energy that we're trying to bring to this building. You can go for, Guy hears me say all the time, if you want to go fast, go solo. If you want to go far, go with many. So.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if someone's coming, just wants a spot on a desk, or if somebody wants a specific amount of space to develop a product, or someone's let's say a foundation wants to come in and rent some space, or an accountant or attorney wants to be around the kids. It's the startup people. We don't know. It depends how much space you're looking for, that the pricing will match that. So we can't answer that it's not a generic thing like you're going to bring me a Wawa and they want to spend this much per square foot. Everyone has a need for space and a different type of space.
Okay. Question from Jalil Bishop in the group chat is what can be done to stop, or what are you guys planning to do to stop or slow down displacement? Will stop displacement of businesses and or residents with your project, if anything?
So I get, I tend to think through analogy, and Tempest, you know me. You've known me before your last two positions in West Philadelphia, right? And I'm somebody that I got into real estate because of my concerns about displacement. My first business partner is someone that became my business partner because I was having conversations with him for years about how do you do development without displacement. I mentioned in a call with the councilwoman last week, Erica texted me one day when we were in Chicago, because I spent almost a year in an equitable development salon at the University of Chicago with people from 14 different cities trying to explore what does equitable development look like. I've been able to get agency with people like Guy because of some of the best practices I've created with either teaching people about redlining or training young entrepreneurs. I came into this space, and frankly, I have 21 projects in some level of development throughout the city, and I punch above my weight class. But the way I did that is because I did that leading with thinking about equity, entrepreneurship, or how to get people like me into the 21st century economy. So, there's some questions in here that Tempest hasn't even addressed that are even more aggressive. Like I hear, Joel Mass say, so you're just speaking speculative. My whole life has been speculative. If I would have believed what people told me my capacity was leading up to this point, and at any given point, I wouldn't be here today, right? So I, as an entrepreneur, I have to speculate, and I have to collaborate, and I have to figure out how to get a product to service. And I understand, as a Black man who has dealt with displacement intergenerationally, let me finish, sir. I understand the concern, but to have change, you have to have some level of collaboration, right? And Guy and I did not start on the same side of the table in talking about equity, but it took us 3 years of conversations and site visits to even get to the idea of having a shared idea of something that could be possible. And even in this discussion or other discussions I've had with people individually in this, it is about trying to get everyone into a collaborative space so that we can collectively create something that is beneficial for not just 52nd Street, but for Philadelphia in general.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Brian, you can ask your question. Thank you so much. And then I'll go back into the chat. We'll have final remarks from the people from Constellar Group, from Smith and Roller, and then we will go to vote. Thank you all for your patience as we've been waiting through. I know that there's been lots of questions and lots of feelings, so I really appreciate you all asking and sharing your experiences. Brian, thank you.
Yes, my name is Brian Dickerson. Live in the Dunlap community right down the street from the project that y'all trying to build. So on 52nd Street, what 52nd Street need, I understand Mr. Smith, his plans and all that, but we need shopping centers. We need supermarkets. We really don't have nothing on 52nd Street that we can purchase. I understand about entrepreneuring. That is good. That's an idea, but how it's going to benefit us? Because the looting this summer and all that, it destroyed the infrastructure of our economy on the black token. So my question to you is, how can let's put like a supermarket, a black-owned supermarket or something like that.
Thank you so much, Brian. So that question is about potentially a supermarket or some other larger commercial, black-owned commercial on that first floor or within the building. Is that correct, Mr. Brian?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And just to add, he's not black, he's Palestinian, but Sunshine Supermarket is on Market Street.
Okay. So I'm sure Taib or Guy will jump in after, but just to sort of in terms of like context, the zoning designation or the zoning districts of the properties along this corridor of 52nd Street or this block is restrictive in what you can do. So, you know, if there's like a, you know, pick a supermarket brand, ShopRite or Aldi, whatever, Black owned or whatever the case may be, you're limited in what you can put here. So I don't want to speak for Taib and Guy about like what their vision is, but I just know that just from a zoning perspective as a zoning attorney, that there's limited in the type of things that you could put on this property just by law that we just wouldn't be able to do. And there's also just the dimensional constraints or something like that. So, you know, I just wanted to sort of toss that out there before anyone else started talking about.
Yeah, I just wanted to I hear you, Mr. Dickinson, and I hear you, the man before him. Was that Mr. Bishop?
Yes.
You're dissatisfied with some of the things that have happened around 52nd Street recently, and you're talking about other needs, and you want to make sure they're neighborhood centric. We only have a 6,000 square foot lot. We can't change the neighborhood. I can't turn it into a shopping center. There is a Family Dollar about 5 doors down, but your question is well taken. We're hoping that this building will do exactly what you're asking in theory, not specifically. It'll bring a wonderful contributing business to the area and will help the neighbors and the kids from the neighbors to re-enter the neighborhood as property owners, as business owners. So I hope we're taking care of what you're looking for, but not specifically.
Okay, just the last question from the group, and then I'll go into final thoughts and go into the vote. Charlie has bumped Erica's question. I think that this is kind of inflammatory, and I'm not exactly sure how it deals directly with this particular project. However, I do want to give credence to someone who did ask the question. So Taib tied this project to white supremacy and fighting white supremacist economic structure. If this project is meant to help combat white supremacy, then why is Constellar Group working with lawyer George Bocchetto, who is representing the Frank L. Rizzo Monument Committee, a group defending a monument of white supremacy and the police abuse of Philly's Black community? Erica, if you could just ask just quickly, just to kind of tie this back to that actual project, do you want him to not work with that lawyer anymore? Because that's tying this project to police brutality, and I don't see those two things have going hand by hand. So I'm a bit confused about that, but I did want to give you the chance to ask that question. If you could just tie that bit up for me really quickly, and then we'll let Guy, because that was a question for Guy, speak to that question. Erica, who asked that question originally, please, if you're still online. Okay, Guy, Guy Loren, can you please, as best as you can, answer that question? Thank you.
I have many friends. George Bocchetto is a friend of mine. He has nothing to do with this project. I don't know why that name is coming up. I've known him for 30 years. My kids went to school with his kids, and I've been on vacation with him. If you don't like what he's doing on Christopher Columbus, that has nothing to do with me. He's a friend of mine. I'm not gonna talk down a friend.
Okay.
And if I could just jump in, I mean, I represent Mr. Smith and Mr. Loren, and I can just tell you, they don't know or have any say in the other clients that I have. It's just, you know, Mr. Loren doesn't have a control over who else I choose to represent. So, I mean, I don't know this attorney. I don't know anything about this gentleman, but I can say that if his practice, or like many other attorneys I know, is in any way common, it's unlikely that Mr. Loren will have any say or be aware of who he's representing at the time until he's put on notice like he was now. So I figured I'd just throw it out there for context.
Thank you so much. I really don't want to offload the FOP and the police stuff in with this project. I know that I believe in intersectionality. However, I do think it's very clear what this project is about, and we want to kind of keep it very focused on this project if possible. Are we going to allow for them to have more space in the backyard, have a fifth floor? Do we support this project? Do we think that it will lead to the economic development and the betterment of this community or not? The final question that I just want us to kind of focus in on that, though I do appreciate everyone coming. And, you know, I don't, like I said earlier, achievability has no hat in this race. Whatever the community decides, we will support. So it's not about that, but I want us to kind of keep it focused on the building if possible. And ideas about who someone's lawyer is, I think kind of takes us a little bit outside of the realm of what this project is about. Though I appreciate you all bringing it up. Just a final question, and then we go into final remarks, and then we go into the poll. What are the materials used on the front facade of the building?
I can speak on this. Material selection hasn't been completely finalized. However, primarily there is going to be a lot of glass involved, aluminum frame, code compliant commercial glass storefront systems. And as you work your way to the top, there will be some kind of paneling. There's a rendering. We haven't finalized any material selection for the paneling, but you could expect anything from like a aluminum composite paneling, fiber cement, or some type of wood or composite material like that. But these are just rough renderings. The zoning drawings, we have not gotten to the actual architectural drawing process as of yet.
We should really know what the material section is. We did. They just went over the material selection. Thank you so much. Hosts have refused to address. Give me 1 second. Thank you. That's not true. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you, your critique. I did answer lots of questions and made sure that everyone, as much as possible, were able to ask questions or concerns around the building. I think that there's a subset of questions and concerns that are about a particular issue, and I don't want to drown out other people who would like to ask questions about the project. That's all. So it is not about silencing anyone, and it's not about not listening to anyone. Everyone has a vote, and whatever your vote is, we will stand by that. Once again, Achievability will not support the project if the community doesn't, but also will support the community will support the community's voice. So we are here as a convener, not as a proponent or of a project versus the people. I really appreciate you all for making it through this this meeting. It was long. There were lots of issues. Right now, there are people that are in the waiting room. I will not be letting them in. They were not here for the meeting. I do not want to tilt any voting for people who were not part of this meeting. So I'm being transparent there. We're not, the meeting is now closed. We will go into final remarks, and then we will have the final poll. Please mute yourself, Kevin.
Yes.
Could you mute yourself, sir?
Yes, my name is Kevin Taylor.
Oh, mute. Could you mute yourself, sir? We're done with questions.
Yes.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you. So we will, if one way that will really help me get a gauge on who is in the building and who is voting is if you answer that first poll question that said, are you a resident? Are you a resident of West Philadelphia? Do you work for Achievability? Do you work on 52nd Street or around 52nd Street? That would be very, very helpful so that we get a gauge on who is voting. It will also be helpful if you put your cross section, your address that you stay at within the chat. There have been people who have come in after we originally asked the question and originally gave the poll. Please put your cross section where you live. You do not have to put your numbered address into the chat. For instance, I live at 48th and Pine. Okay, I both live and work in West Philadelphia. I'm a resident. I have worked on 52nd Street. I currently work on 60th Street. So if you can please drop that your address across streets so that I get a general idea of where people are voting from, and make sure that we just have a clear view. Everybody gets a vote, but we just want to know where people are coming from, okay? So if you approve this project, if you don't, everybody gets a vote, okay? No worries. Please, could you, Taib, Guy, have any final thoughts before we close out for the poll? I will then put out a new poll with the options of supporting this project, not supporting this project, supporting this project with changes. That if that's in a writing community benefits agreement, if it's whatever those changes are. And you can put the changes that you would like to see within the chats as well. Thank you so much. Please, before you go into your final remarks, please say what the variance that you are going for again. And then you can make your final remarks, and then we will go into polling. This recording will be available for everyone to view. It should be up by Friday. So thank you so much for everyone who showed up today. I really, really appreciate you having a mind and a heart for your community. I so appreciate that. Thank you.
So I could just briefly speak to the variances again. So we are seeking 2 variances. The first one is the maximum height required under the zoning district. The maximum height is typically 38 feet, and the proposed building is 51 feet. And we're also seeking a variance on the rear yard depth, which is under the zoning designation, dimensional requirements is 11.3 feet. And because we just designed it as a courtyard, technically doesn't count towards, under the code, it doesn't count towards the rear yard. Even though we have more open space than is required under the code because of where we position it and because we made it as a courtyard. It's technically not a rear yard because it doesn't start behind the building. So that's the second variance they're looking for, to be able to obtain the variance from that rear yard requirement.
Okay, thank you. When is the ZBA meeting, the proposed ZBA meeting?
So it's supposed to be August 5th, but I was informed this morning that the ZBA, and I don't know if that's going to be the case for this, it's currently August 5th. I was informed that they because they ran through some issues with their first couple of online hearings in terms of timing and gaps between scheduled hearings, they may be rearranging the next couple of weeks. So as soon as they let us know, but right now it's August 5th.
Okay, thank you so much. Final remarks, Taib and Guy Laurent, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to tell you about this project. To a lot of the questions and concerns regarding equity, Black ownership, or representative businesses of the Black community, I encourage you to look at my past work, ask about me in the community. I mentor many Black and brown people. I serve on many boards. This is my life's work. To be frank, I used to be in the entertainment industry, and what got me out of the entertainment industry is I found it to be despicable how many people who are resourced don't care about Black people. So I'm driven by mission, and I'm coming back to West Philly driven by mission. So I appreciate your time. I welcome your critiques because I know it comes from a space of love, and I'll be here in the city of Philadelphia until the casket drops. So that's me.
Thank you, Taib.
I want to thank everyone for coming. We hope we're part of the rebirth of 52nd Street. There's a lot going on in the world and in Philly and in West Philly and on 52nd Street these days. I hope if you close your eyes after this Zoom and you put a list of the 4 or 5 things you'd like to happen there, that a young entrepreneur, Black entrepreneur, gets to partner and have an equity position in a building that's supposed to help the young, impressionable Blacks of the neighborhood in a new development that should be the rebirth, where CNN just had their cameras saying there's no chance on this block. I think if you take the 4 or 5 things you really want to happen there, I think you'll see we check off most of the boxes, and I hope you'll support us. We'll try to be sensitive to what everyone suggests. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. The ZBA is now slating this project to go up for review on September 1st. I will now put the poll question. Do you support the 53 North 52nd Street project? Yes, no, or with changes? I ask that everyone who is eligible to vote, meaning you're not the developer, to vote for this project. Thank you so much for your time. I hope to get 100% in terms of people who are participating in this polling. Thank you so much. And there will be a zoning meeting for 108 North 57th Street next week. Nobody shows up to meetings like this. Like 55 to 57 people showed up because they cared about their community. This is incredible. I'm appreciative of that. The next ZBA meeting is not as sexy. It's not a big building on a major corridor. It's smaller, but we still need community voice. I will be pushing the polling now, launching the polling now.
Can I say one more thing, Tempest?
Yes.
One more thing, because I believe it might have gotten lost because we talked about it a lot. Steve mentioned it. So Guy mentioned a phrase in real estate, and that's by right. So by right, we can build a 4-story building. What you're actually voting on is, can we have the Zen garden with the tree in the center so that we can make this an aspirational space, right? So if you choose not to support this, a building is going to be built there. It might not be my project and it might not be my idea, but a building's going to be built there, right? And the way that this works is something that might not involve me, that could be a dollar store, that could be a CVS, that will be parasitic capital to the Black community, will be what you're voting for. And that's just my opinion. I don't know how God feels about that, but I just got to keep it real.
Yes, it's a very important point. In ZBA, and a lot of us, this is our first zoning meeting or one of our first zoning meetings. By right is part of the zoning code. You are able to by right without speaking to the community, create projects. So there was a project on 52nd Street where they wanted to turn it into a ward home for teenage boys, and they were able to do that by right. It didn't happen, but they were able to do it by right. So this is about the Zen Garden, and being able to use more, have the fifth story. Your voice does matter though, but that is important to note. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
We have 19 out of 49 people voting so far. Please, everyone vote. It is taken seriously. This will inform what our support letter will look like, but I understand you feeling that way. We currently have 29 out of 49 participants. Please, please vote. Thank you so much. The second poll question was, do you support 53 North 52nd Street? That's up now. The first one, we had the entire meeting to do, and I asked you guys to do it, about whether you were a resident. If you didn't do it by now, I'm sorry. We're focused right now on, do you support the 53 North 52nd Street project, which was the second question in the on the first poll that I put forth anyway. Thank you so much for coming. We really do appreciate your voice. Thank you. And I really do hope to see you again. You can like the Achievability page. We are doing food giveaways for the children Monday through Friday from 10:30 to 12:30 every day at 59 North 60th Street. If you need help with your utility assistance, please contact me. I will put my email address in the chat box. You are welcome to email me. You can email me at tcarter@achieve-ability.org. Thank you so much. I will not close out this meeting until I give everybody a chance to vote. Can you announce? Walnut Hill Community Association will have an RCO meeting for Walnut on July 28th at 4 p.m. Please like the Walnut Hill Community Association Facebook page to learn more. There will be a Zoom link on that page. I believe that they should have an event page as well with that Zoom link. But July 28th, this isn't the only program in which we need your voice. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. Once again, you can email me anytime at tcarter@achievability.org. We have 77% of the people here who have voted. Please continue to vote if possible. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to bring this to the community. Remember, your voice informs what our support letter or non-support letter will say. Thank you, Charlie. Free Mumia. We're at 79% of people voting. Please vote. When you're finished voting, you can leave. We will share all of the polling results on our Facebook page by Friday. Thank you so much. We're at 100% voting. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. We hope to see you at next week's RCO meeting. There will be an event on our Facebook page. Please stay connected. Please stay engaged with your community. We appreciate you. Okay, I respect whether you vote or not. For those that do not have Facebook, we will send out an email, and we will also speak to West Philly local. WHYY is in the building, and other media outlets about what the vote was. We will also put it in our newsletter. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who came. My cross streets are 48th and Pine.
Thank you, Tempest.
No problem. Thank you, Guy. Thank you, Taib. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Luke. Thank you to all the residents who came out. Thank you to all of our committee people. Thank you to the councilperson's office. Thank you to Erica. Thank you to Charlie. Thank you to FM. Thank you to everyone who came. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming out. We will now end this meeting, and I will stop the recording now.